Oh, ladies and gentlemen, whew, JakePaul.exe has crashed. Jake Paul is out of his mind. Or is he? What's going on, everybody? Cryptix. And we're just going to jump right into this one, but before we do, by dropping a like, subscribing, and turning on post notifications, it actually helps the video and just this channel get out there to more recommended viewers or an audience. And as a community, we will grow exponentially, but I can't do it without your support. The past couple of days have been amazing. We got an additional 100 subscribers, I think, which is pretty cool, especially for a person who just talks for 10 to 15 minutes straight and has some Call of Duty gameplay in the background. I think that's pretty dope. But yeah, enough of me talking, enough of me rambling about the channel. Let's jump into this. So if you guys don't know, boxing, past 25 years or so, just hasn't been as popular. It's actually been on a downward trend in terms of popularity and sales. And that's due to a variety of different reasons. The two off the top of my head, and these are kind of opinionated in a certain way, there just hasn't been as many marketable boxers compared to like the decades prior. Like you had Mike Tyson, one of the most marketable fighters in the history of the sport. You had Muhammad Ali, right? I can only think of like a handful of boxers right now that are somewhat marketable. You got Anthony Joshua, you got Tyson Fury, and then you have like the older guys like Manny Pacquiao and Floyd. We will be getting into Floyd in about a second or so, but overall there just hasn't been as many like main events that have just been like globally talked about, right? So the past couple of years, YouTubers have actually entered the sport of boxing, which I found pretty funny initially, but it's actually a sweet marketing move on both the YouTuber side and also the boxing promoters side of things. Let me explain, right? When this really started, I think, the whole YouTubers boxing trend, it really started when Logan Paul, one of the bigger YouTubers, decided to fight KSI, another well-known YouTuber in the the whole YouTube community. And both of these guys were pretty consistent on their channels, and then they decided to box one another. They were trash talking this and that, but they scaled back on uploads. And as a YouTuber who uploads pretty consistently, having, to scale back and maybe like box or work out and eat healthy to train for a fight, to get a paycheck at that fight and just not have to upload and worry about YouTube as much is pretty nice. It's a pretty nice gig, right? So KSI and Logan, they fought each other. They actually tied in their first match, got a nice paycheck out of it, win or lose. And then they decided to have a rematch, and it was even a bigger event than the first one because, any tie in any type of boxing match usually garners more sales in the next promotional fight. So what ended up happening is that Logan Paul fought KSI, he lost, and then Jake Paul, Logan Paul's brother, decided to fight KSI's brother, Deji. So it was like a brother v brother bout type of thing. And, Jake Paul actually beat Deji, and Jake Paul won his fight. Like, that was it. And Logan Paul lost his. So Logan Paul really hasn't entered the sport of boxing, but now, all of a sudden, he fought a YouTuber in his past couple of fights, but now he's fighting Floyd Money Mayweather in a super exhibition fight in February. This is Logan Paul we're talking about, a YouTuber fighting the greatest defensive boxer in the history of the sport, and also arguably, if not just a definitive argument, for the fact that Floyd is probably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the history of boxing. You could even make the argument that he may be the best boxer in the history of the sport. Floyd Money Mayweather is fighting a YouTuber in February, guys. Like, 2021, God's just unloading more, DLCs for us. This is all a simulation. I cannot believe I'm saying that, right? Pretty crazy, pretty wild. But then you also have Jake Paul, on the other hand, who is just egging on consistently, might I add, Connor McGregor into fighting him in a boxing ring as well. Now, you have to think of it from a marketing perspective, right? You got Logan Paul, the older brother, fighting Floyd Money Mayweather, the greatest defensive boxer in February. Wouldn't it be crazy and just a great marketing move on every single party involved for Jake Paul to also fight Connor McGregor in the same event? Now, I doubt that'll happen, but it's definitely plausible, right? Because we already saw what happened when KSI and Logan Paul fought, and then also Jake Paul fought, KSI's brother, Deji. That was a pretty interesting fight, and it actually garnered a lot of sales, a lot of pay-per-view, streams, all that stuff. It did get a lot of money out of it. So imagine now one of the best UFC fighters, and definitely by far the best and most marketable UFC fighter in, I would say, the history of the sport, in Connor McGregor, fighting Jake Paul, and then, the best defensive boxer in Floyd Money Mayweather fighting Logan Paul. Like, that would be just, crazy to think about. So, getting back into it, right? Jake Paul's been egging on Connor pretty consistently. I'm just going to let a tape roll of Jake Paul just all out trolling. It's actually pretty funny.
What's up, you Irish cunt? Good morning, Connor McGregor. I know you're probably beating up old dudes in a bar right now, or maybe you're jacking off because you're sick of fucking your wife. I mean, she's a 4, Connor. You could do a lot better, but happy Monday. My team sent you a $50 million offer this morning. $50 million cash, proof of funds, the biggest fight offer you've ever been offered, but you're scared to fight me, Connor. You're ducking me because you don't want to lose to a fucking YouTuber. You're 0-1 as a boxer. I'm 2-0 as a boxer. I just came off the 8th biggest pay-per-view event in history, but you want to fight Dustin Prober, who has less followers on Instagram than my fucking dog. That's a fact. And Dana White, you're a fucking pussy too, you ugly fucking bald bitch. You said there's 0% chance of this fight happening, but there's 0% chance of you getting some fucking pussy. Connor, you're scared. Dana, you're scared. Sign the fucking contract, you idiots. Jesus fucking Christ. Irish bitch.
So yeah, Jake Paul, he basically called Connor McGregor out for, I think Connor McGregor actually got into some controversy with punching an older man in a bar in Ireland. He's also just been controversial the past couple of years. He had a whole thing with the UFC at one point, but that's for a whole other video. Basically, Connor McGregor has had some controversy, but Jake Paul called that out, but he also called Connor McGregor's wife a 4, out of 10. Dude is ultimately trying to troll Connor. And at the end of the day, Connor's the type of person that doesn't take any shit, right? So, I wouldn't be surprised if Connor actually did fight Jake for the amount of money that was displayed in a big fat check of $50 million. Now, Conor McGregor fought Floyd Money Mayweather, and I believe he lost, but he got $100 million out of it. So, 50 mil ain't bad. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'll fight Jake Paul for 50 million. You know what I mean? So, at the end of the day, that's a nice sum of cash, and Connor, he was insulted. He wasn't personally insulted or anything like that, but Jake Paul trolled him in a trash talking video. So, like I said, Connor doesn't take any shit, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just says, you know what, screw it, let's just teach this kid a lesson. It would be pretty funny, right? Now let's just jump into the context of that quick little vid, because Jake Paul's 2-0, right? And then he called out McGregor saying you're 0-1. But Connor also fought Floyd Mayweather a couple years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. It's been a while, right? But basically, that was the best defensive boxer he was going up against. And he's 0-1. Big deal. He fought the best pound-for-pound boxer in the history of the sport. And Jake Paul's flexing his 2-0 record, but he fought Deji and also Nate Robinson recently. He also said this was when he knocked out Nate, it was also the 8th highest pay-per-view boxing event in the history of the sport, which is a pretty big deal, right? That was definitely carried by the fact that Mike Tyson came back for a main event exhibition match. But still, regardless, great to flex. And at the end of the day, Jake Paul was flexing his house, he was flexing his mansion, the car, all that good stuff. He was smoking a bogue. He was thriving in that video, but he was also definitely displaying certain things that he knew would tick Conor McGregor off, like the Irish flag, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, Jake Paul knows what he's doing here. And you already know he's talking to Logan about, certain ways to kind of egg him on, because they both want a huge paycheck, and it would be in their benefit if they got both of the fighters logged on to the same pay-per-view event. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, Jake Paul also had another incident just recently, actually, and I think it may even happen today from the day of this upload. Jake Paul had a drive-by where he drove by one of Conor McGregor's friends and threw water balloons at him. I'll let that tape roll as well.
Hey, look! It's Connor McGregor's bitch right there! Pussy! Pussy! Piece of shit! Pussy! Dip, dip, dip! Pussy! Fuck you, bitch! You're a bitch!
So, obviously Jake Paul was trolling there. He was calling them, some heinous words or whatever. And then he said, dip, 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 as soon as Conor McGregor's friend was about to square them up in their car or whatever. You know what I mean? So this seemed, at this point, I feel like this is played out, and I feel like it's all for marketing and pay-per-view sales now. I feel like they already signed the contract at this point, but I don't want to say definitively, but how does Jake Paul even know that Conor McGregor's friend's there? Yeah, you could argue that, one of his boys saw him and, called up Jake, said, this, Conor McGregor's friend's here, do something to troll him. it just seemed way too acted out. There was like a professional camera. I think there was a microphone or something like that. They were able to get water balloons ready in that time period. Like a bunch of things that just kind of made me feel like, okay, this is definitely staged. Like Connor McGregor already like signed this contract, you know what I mean? So it was a pretty interesting video, but regardless, it would just be the simulation's real. If Logan Paul is fighting Floyd and Jake Paul is fighting Connor McGregor in the same pay-per-view boxing event, you know what I mean? Like it just seems like one of the biggest types of events, but not because, you know, there's two skilled boxers, or in this case 4 skilled boxers going up against each other. It's just like a bunch of just clouded popular celebrities at this point getting in a boxing match with each other. Now granted, Floyd is a celebrity, he's also a very well-trained boxer. I've already gassed him up enough. And then Conor McGregor, definitely one of the best UFC fighters and by far the most marketable UFC fighter. It just seems too good to be true. Now, you could make the argument that Conor's just not going to do it because he already has enough money. He doesn't need to do anything. He's got his own like liquor business. He's got a lot of money in the bank with sponsorships. He doesn't need to fight this kid, and it may even like be detrimental to his career and his path, you know what I mean? Because he would be fighting a YouTuber. But at the same time, Floyd is fighting Logan. So it's like, you really can't make that argument because it's going to garner sales regardless. Now, there's one other counter argument to this, and there is doubt in my mind still that Conor is going to fight Jake Paul. And that's because Conor is actually having a fight come up, I believe, in the next few weeks or so. So at the end of the day, would he, be in a UFC fight, win or lose, and then go on to box someone a month after? It doesn't seem from a health perspective the best way to go about it. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Conor, doesn't get a scratch on him, fights in this UFC match, and then goes on to say, I'm going to fight, Logan Paul, or not Logan Paul, Jake Paul, on the same event that Logan Paul is fighting Floyd. It wouldn't blow my mind at all. It just seems like a really good marketing decision at the end of the day. And like I said, to have both of the Paul brothers fight some of the best fighters in their own respective category in a boxing ring at the same night, or in the same night, that just seems like money left on the table if it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I want to know your thoughts. Drop a like, subscribe, comment down below, just anything and everything about this whole situation. I think it's just way too good to not happen, even though it is our YouTubers. Like, it's just like celebrities at this point getting in a boxing match. I think it would be pretty interesting to see. So I'm Cryptix. I'll get in a boxing ring with Jake Paul for $50 million. And signing off.